Well, while we were away last week, a momentous decision was made by a special meeting of the Assembly of First Nations. The vast majority of chiefs voting to reject a nearly $48 billion package to address the on-reserve child welfare system.
Draft resolution number 1 does not carry, so is defeated.
Well, as you heard, the decision was met with thunderous applause, even though the settlement agreement aimed to address past wrongs and also provide funding to reform the child welfare system on reserve. Still, it was deemed not to be enough, though there were those at the special meeting who cautioned against turning their backs on the deal.
Scuttle this deal if you want. Go ahead. I'm up here upset because I think that's what's going to happen. Go ahead. Then what? If you think it's that easy to just go and get another agreement, we've been fighting since 2007. We've been there in the trenches.
Well, joining us right now is Cindy Blackstock. She is the Executive Director of the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society. She helped initiate the complaint back in 2007 that the settlement agreement was hoping to address. Cindy and Ms. Blackstock, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Listen, I understand your organization did not sign this agreement that the AFN was voting on last week. So perhaps we should start with why this agreement was not enough.
Well, it really was a key piece around the security of the money. It was advertised as 47.8, but closer scrutiny showed that really this was a year-by-year agreement that gave the government a lot of discretion. Number 2, the implementation really matters because we have done a lot of work with First Nations and their service providers to make sure that every dollar maximizes benefit for First Nations children. And there was a severe departure from that evidence here that put the discrimination at high risk of recurring. And the final thing that was kind of really a concern to us is that the governance over this thing would happen by a secret committee. Secrecy is never good when we're talking about First Nations children across the country. And it didn't provide for the discrimination to stop after another 9 years. This agreement was only for 9 years and it'll expire, and then you got to keep your fingers crossed that First Nations kids don't suffer. That's not good enough.
I hear your concerns, but of course we just heard Carolyn Buffalo, and she did warn, and she's not alone. She warned against turning your backs on an agreement like this. Again, the money is one thing, as she said, not easy to come by, and she says to community members that this was no easy process. So what do you say to people like her that feel that a huge chance for compensation and reform has now been lost?
Well, I really honor her and respect her. She's done a lot of great work on Jordan's Principle. But there was, I think that they weren't informed properly because the view was that this was going to somehow address the compensation, that was going to get in the way of the compensation that Carolyn and others have fought so hard for. That was not what this meeting was about. So to give them some peace, they're going to get their compensation. It's a entirely separate matter. What this was about is making sure that discrimination stops and does not recur. And negotiation is one pathway. We actually have legal orders against the government to require it to stop discriminating. And what we need to do is negotiate a deal that goes above those legal orders instead of really below those legal orders, as this deal did in many cases.
Mm-hmm. Except that, and I hear what you're saying, that you hope the negotiations go above those legal orders. But in the negotiating of this with the AFN, the government, the Prime Minister, we have here a Prime Minister who has said that there is no more important relationship than the relationship with Indigenous peoples. But the next time around, if there is an election and if the polls are correct, it will not be this Prime Minister, not this government negotiating. So I hear what you're saying about hoping to do above and beyond what the court is saying must be done. But does it at all worry you that when this comes to the table again, it may be a completely different government that you're dealing with?
Right. All changes in government worry me. I've seen discrimination across all changes in government. And so we need to make sure that whatever is achieved for First Nations children cannot be undone easily by any future government. And that's why having legal orders is really important. The draft agreement, as it was structured, allowed every year government to address the funding levels by introducing required approval processes, which were undefined in the agreement. So Canada could lower that amount by just introducing one of these. And it was very hard to enforce that agreement the way that it was drafted. All the tribunal's orders would disappear, the tribunal would disappear, and there was this alternative dispute resolution mechanism. But the key thing is it couldn't order Canada to spend more money if more money was needed to stop the discrimination.
So where would you like this to go next then? What would give you some comfort that in saying no to what was on the table, that you will be able to get something better down the road?
Well, number one, the tribunal's orders are still in place. So this isn't a zero-sum game. About 45 billion of this is kind of addressed in the tribunal's orders. So we have that will continue. And the chiefs decided to really put in place a new process to make sure that it's transparent, it's accountable, it's evidence-based, and that First Nations leadership and their experts are at the table. That's the way it should have been done. That's the way the chiefs directed it ought to have been done in 2022, but that wasn't followed through. So we're resetting, and we're going to build on all the good work that's done and get this thing home through the finish line in the next few months.
Next few months or next few years?
No, I think it'll be the next few months, Michael, because we really have done a lot of the evidence gathering with public finance experts over at the Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy. We have a lot of input from First Nations communities and their service providers. So I think we will have something to be able to present to the leadership for their decision making in the not too distant future. That's going to be the work order by the chiefs.
Cindy, I always appreciate the time. Thank you for this. That is Cindy Blackstock.
Thank you very much.